They say the Harbor Line Hotel lobby went silent the moment a biker leader named Cole Mercer seized the owner by the collar and said, "For everyone to hear, you've been hurting her." It wasn't whispered in a hallway. It landed like a hammer right at the front desk, under bright lights in America, with a line of guests watching. And nobody was sure if they should step in or step back. This was in Charleston, near the river, close to midnight. The hotel was still busy with late check-ins and guests requesting extra towels. Behind the desk stood a young waitress named Eliza Hart, topping off coffee for travelers who looked half asleep. She wore long sleeves even though the lobby felt warm. She kept her eyes low, and when she moved carefully, as if her body was sore in places she didn't want anyone to notice. Most nights, her tips were under $40, and she guarded them like air. The owner, Graham Leland, strutted around like the building was an extra room in his own house. People said he lived in a big brick place across town, with a tall iron gate and a porch that never had a single leaf on it. He liked clean floors, tight rules, and being obeyed. When staff spoke, he cut them off. When guests complained, he smiled and blamed the workers. Elisa had learned to answer him fast and soft, the way you do when you want a storm to pass without breaking anything. Cole Mercer walked in with 2 riders behind him. They weren't loud and they didn't stumble like drunks. Their jackets were damp from light rain. Cole scanned the room once, like a man who counts doors without thinking. Then his eyes found Eliza. Something in his face tightened, quick and sharp, and then it went flat again, calm on top, anger underneath. Eliza tried to continue serving as if nothing was wrong. She poured coffee, wiped the counter, and forced a small smile at an older couple. But Cole had already caught small things. The way she protected her left wrist, the way she flinched when Graham came close, and a shadow of purple near her cheek that makeup couldn't fully hide. Cole didn't ask for a room key. He walked straight to Graham. Graham saw the leather and gave a thin smile. "We're full," he said, as if turning Cole away would make him feel powerful. Cole stopped close, not shouting, not begging. "I'm not here for a bed," he said. "I'm here because I saw what you did in the service hall." The words were simple, but the lobby heard them. A few guests lifted their heads. A clerk at the side station froze with a stack of towels in her arms. Graham tried to laugh. "You saw nothing," he said, and his hand flicked toward Eliza like she was a thing, not a person. Eliza's shoulders jumped at the motion. Cole took 1 step closer. "Don't talk about her like that," he said. "And don't touch her again?" Graham's smile turned mean. "Or what?" He snapped, loud enough to pull more eyes toward them. Cole didn't argue. He grabbed Graham by the collar and shoved him back into the wall beside the desk. The thud made a few people gasp. Cole struck him a few times fast, controlled, and over before it could turn into a mess. Graham's expensive jacket twisted as he tried to swing back, but he looked surprised more than brave. Eliza stood behind the counter, stiff as a statue, her hands trembling around the coffee pot. Voices rose at once. "Call the police!" Someone shouted. Another person yelled, "Stop!" A phone slipped from a hand and clacked on the tile. Cole stepped back and lifted his hands, palms open. He didn't bolt for the doors. Graham slid down the wall, red-faced, pointing like he could order the room itself. "Arrest him!" he yelled. "He attacked me. I own this place." 2 officers rushed in moments later, moving fast and scanning faces. Graham started talking over everyone, spilling words like water, saying Cole was dangerous and the hotel was under attack. Cole kept his hands up and looked the officers right in the eye. "Arrest me if you want," he said. Then he nodded toward Eliza, whose sleeves were still pulled tight to her wrists. "But first, look at her." The officers turned, and the whole lobby turned with them. For the first time that night, the focus wasn't on Cole's fists or Graham's shouting. It was on Eliza's face, on the careful way she hid her arms, on the bruise that makeup couldn't erase. Eliza tried to shrink behind the counter, but the room had finally seen what she'd been carrying, and the silence that followed felt heavier than any shout all by herself, for far too long. They say Officer Nina Alvarez was the first through the glass doors, rain on her sleeves, and her voice steady over the noise. She didn't rush straight to the biker leader or the hotel owner. She scanned the lobby like she was reading a page. Guests pressed against the walls, the owner shouting, and the waitress behind the counter trying to shrink into the light. In that moment, Eliza Hart looked less like an employee and more like someone hiding in plain sight. The owner, Graham Leland, kept pointing at Cole Mercer and talking fast. He attacked me, he said, loud enough to make heads turn again and again. Cole stood with his hands raised, palms open, not arguing, not running. People expected a biker to bolt, but Cole stayed put as if leaving would put Eliza in danger later. Two riders near the entryway watched quietly, their boots planted. Nina spoke to Cole first because it was the cleanest move. "Sir, keep your hands up," she said. Then she shifted her attention without turning her back. Her eyes landed on Eliza's sleeves, long and tight at the wrists, and on the tired way Eliza held her shoulders. Nina softened her tone. "Ma'am, behind the desk, can you step out here for me?" The lobby quieted as if everyone suddenly understood the question wasn't really about a fight. Eliza hesitated, then stepped out, slow as the tile might crack. Halfway across the floor, her left sleeve slipped up, just for a second. Dark marks showed on her forearm, then vanished when she yanked the fabric down. "I'm fine," she blurted, too quick, too practiced. The second officer, Caleb Byrne, saw the bruises too, and his face tightened. Graham tried to smile his way out of it. "She's clumsy," he said. "She falls," Cole didn't shout, he didn't brag. He just spoke like a man tired of watching fear win. "She didn't fall," he said. "You grabbed her in the service hall. You did it because you think no one will stop you." A guest near the vending machines gasped. Nina raised a hand to slow the room, then looked at Eliza the way you look at a door that's been locked from the inside. "Eliza," she said, "I need the truth." They say Nina guided Eliza to a chair by the lobby plants, close enough to feel safe, but far enough from Graham's reach. Eliza perched on the edge like she didn't deserve the seat. Nina crouched so she wasn't towering, and her questions stayed simple. "Do you feel safe going home tonight? Has he been hurting you?" Eliza's eyes flicked to Graham, then away. "I don't want trouble," she whispered. Nina answered, quiet but firm. "Trouble already found you." The truth came out in small pieces at first. Eliza rented a tiny house in Knoxville, a narrow place with peeling paint and a porch step that squeaked. Her pay was low, and Graham controlled the rest. If she made $38 in tips, he could take $20 for mistakes. If she protested, he'd threaten her job and remind her rent was due. One month, he claimed she owed $75 for a tray he said she broke. Eliza said she paid because fear is expensive. She even told Nina about the money she hid at home, folded inside an old tea tin, because she didn't trust anyone at the bank window. Most weeks, it was just $60 or $90 saved for emergencies. Her rent was $1,100 a month, and the late fee was $50, so one bad week could ruin everything. Graham kept interrupting from a few steps away, acting like the lobby belonged to him. "She's lying," he snapped. "She wants attention." Cole's voice stayed level. "You pay her $9 an hour and take the tips she earns," he said. "You told her nobody would believe her." Nina turned to Graham, sharper now. "Sir, step back." When he refused, Caleb moved in and guided him away, firm and controlled. Nina looked back at Eliza. "Did he do this to you?" Eliza stared at her hands for a long beat, then lifted her sleeve on purpose. The bruises were clearer in the bright light, not just one mark but a pattern, like someone had been grabbing the same places again and again. Her voice shook, but it didn't vanish. "Yes," she said. After that, it moved fast. Nina nodded once to Caleb, and he pulled out handcuffs. Graham started throwing threats, lawyers, friends, money, like he could buy the moment back. It didn't work. The cuffs clicked, and the owner's face changed when he realized the rules had finally reached him. As they led him toward the doors, Cole lowered his hands, silent. Eliza watched, stunned, as she'd just seen a wall fall in America. They say Eliza Hart didn't go back to the Harborline Hotel after the night Graham Leland was let out in handcuffs. She went home instead, to her little rental house on Maple Street in Knoxville, the one with the faded blue paint and the porch step that always groaned like it was tired too. The house wasn't fancy, but it was hers, at least on paper, and it had a small yard where weeds grew faster than grass. Even with the door locked, Eliza used to sleep lightly, waking up at every car that slowed down outside. That night, she sat on the edge of her couch until sunrise, listening for a knock that didn't come, still feeling the hotel's bright lobby lights in her eyes. In the morning, she found her tea tin and counted the bills she had been hiding. There was $214 inside, folded tight, smelling faintly of old metal and dried peppermint. It wasn't much, but it was proof she had survived the last few months. She made coffee, stared at the chipped mug in her hands, and tried to picture what came next. Her phone buzzed over and over with unknown numbers. Some were news people hunting a story. Some were hotel staff asking what they should do now. One message, short and careful, came from Officer Nina Alvarez. "If he contacts you, call us right away." Eliza read it twice, then set the phone down like it was hot. They say Cole Mercer showed up the next afternoon, but not in a loud way. He didn't roll into her street with engines screaming. He came alone, parked down the block, and walked up slowly with his hands where she could see them. He stopped at the edge of her walkway as if a line was drawn there. Eliza opened the door only a little at first, the chain still on. Her face was cleaner without makeup, and the marks she'd tried to hide looked worse in daylight. She didn't look angry at Cole. She looked confused, like she was still waiting for someone to tell her she'd done something wrong. "I didn't come to scare you," Cole said. His voice was plain, not sweet, not rough on purpose. "I came to check if you're okay." Eliza swallowed and nodded once, but her hands shook on the door. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered, like she was protecting him even after everything. Cole didn't step closer. "Maybe," he said. "But he shouldn't have done what he did to you." And I couldn't watch it anymore. Eliza's eyes filled fast, and she wiped her cheek with the back of her sleeve, annoyed with herself for showing anything at all. They talked on her porch because Eliza didn't want anyone inside, not yet. The wind moved through the bare branches and made soft clicking sounds against the window. Cole told her he wasn't proud of fighting, even if people expected him to be. "I'm not trying to be a hero," he said. "I've just seen what it looks like when someone is trapped." Eliza stared out at the street and asked the question that had been burning in her since the lobby went quiet. "Why did you believe me before I even spoke?" Cole leaned on the porch rail and looked down for a moment, like he was choosing words that wouldn't break. "Because I grew up with a mother who wore long sleeves in summer," he said. "And because I know the face people make when they're scared to tell the truth." Eliza didn't tell him everything at once, but little pieces slipped out as the afternoon went on. She told him how she'd bounced through Dayton, then Baton Rouge, then Spokane, always taking the job that promised steady hours and always ending up under some boss who treated her like she was easy to push around. She told him Graham had charged her for training, for lost stock, for bad attitude, until her paycheck felt like a joke. Some weeks, after rent and food, she had $12 left and pretended that was normal. Cole listened without interrupting, and when she went quiet, he didn't rush to fill the silence. That was new for Elisa. Most men talked over her. Cole waited. By evening, a neighbor, Denise Carver, came out to water her plants and glanced over, curious but not nosy. Denise was the kind of woman who wore a bright scarf and didn't lower her eyes for anyone. She gave Eliza a small wave, then looked at Cole's bike jacket and raised an eyebrow like she was measuring him. Eliza surprised herself by waving back almost shyly. After Denise went inside, Elisa let out a breath. "I don't want him coming here," she said, meaning Graham, even though he was locked up. "I know he has friends. I know he has money." Cole nodded as he'd already thought about it. "Then we make this place safer," he said, "and we make sure you're not alone." They say a week later, paperwork started moving like a river that had been blocked too long. The police asked for statements. A clerk from the hotel's office brought records. A lawyer named Hannah Pierce offered to help Eliza file a claim without charging her up front. Not long after, a check came through from a mess of insurance and back pay that Graham couldn't touch anymore. It was for $1,450, and Eliza stared at the number until her eyes hurt, half expecting it to vanish. She used $860 to replace the front door with a stronger one, $210 for new locks, and $95 for motion lights that turned on when anyone stepped near her porch. She kept the rest in her tea tin, but this time it didn't feel like a secret. It felt like a plan. Eliza wearing a party dress. One night, when the porch light clicked on and the yard stayed quiet, Eliza wearing a party dress and sat beside Cole on the steps, and let herself laugh small at first, then real, like she hadn't heard that sound from her own mouth in a long time. "I used to think men like you only showed up in bad stories," she said, watching the light spill across the cracked sidewalk. Cole rested his elbows on his knees and looked out at the empty street. "Maybe I'm trying to be in a better one," he answered. And they say Eliza didn't flinch when a car passed by. She just watched it go, held her keys like a normal person, and for the first time in a long while, believed she might actually be safe in America. They say the last shock didn't happen in a courtroom or under the Harborline Hotel lights. It happened months later, in a plain diner outside Milwaukee, where the coffee tasted burnt and the pie was too sweet, and where nobody cared who you used to be. Elisa Hart had started fresh there, wearing short sleeves for the first time in years because she wanted the world to see she wasn't hiding anymore. The bruise marks were fading, but the memory still lived in her shoulders. In the way she still checked the door twice, and the way she saved every extra dollar like it might be taken away. The diner sat near a quiet stretch of road, the kind that makes you think of long drives and second chances. Elisa rented a small upstairs room in Milwaukee at first, then moved into a little white house with a narrow porch and a rose bush that didn't look like it wanted to survive winter. She paid $1,250 a month and kept the receipt in a folder, like it was proof she had a right to exist. She bought a used couch for $140 and a kitchen table for $65, both scratched but solid. The place smelled like fresh paint and warm bread when she baked, and even that simple smell made her feel richer than she'd ever felt. They say Cole Mercer didn't hover, and he didn't act like her life was his project. He visited when she wanted him to, and when she didn't answer a text right away, he didn't push. That mattered more than grand words. He worked his own jobs, did his own rides, and kept his distance from trouble, because he knew how easily it could spill onto her porch. Still, he checked the locks one evening without being asked, not like he owned the door, but like he respected it. Elisa watched him tighten a screw and realized she wasn't used to help that came without a price. When the case against Graham Leland moved forward, it pulled at Eliza's nerves like a loose thread. There were statements to sign, meetings to attend, and days when she felt brave in the morning and shaky by lunch. A public advocate named Rachel Morrow explained things in plain words, repeating the same lines until Eliza believed them. "You did nothing wrong." Another officer, Derek Sloan, drove Eliza to one hearing when her car wouldn't start, and he didn't talk much in the ride, just kept the radio low and let her breathe. Cole sat behind her in court, quiet as a shadow, not staring at Graham, not giving him the satisfaction. Eliza later said that was the first time she felt safe in a room where fear used to run the show. The diner was where her life finally felt normal. She learned the regulars' orders and smiled without forcing it. She saved coins in a jar and bills in a small envelope, and for once, she didn't have to hide the envelope like it was shameful. Some weeks, she managed to put away $120, sometimes $200, and she set a goal to buy a reliable car by spring. She even let herself buy one nice thing, a coat for $89, warm enough that she could walk outside without flinching at the cold. Cole came by on slow afternoons and took the corner booth, and Eliza would bring him water before he even asked, because she liked doing kind things when she chose them. They say the day she asked him to marry her started like any other. The sky was gray, the diner's bell rang over the door, and a radio behind the counter played a soft song that nobody really listened to. Elisa carried a plate of fries to a table, then wiped her hands and walked to Cole's booth. She didn't sit right away. She stood there a second, looking at his face like she was checking if the moment was real. Cole raised one eyebrow. "You're looking at me like I forgot to pay," he said. Elisa gave a small laugh, then got still again. "I've been thinking," she said, calm like she'd practiced the words in her head. Cole leaned back, careful now. "That usually means something big," he said. Eliza nodded once. "It is," she answered. Then she said the truth in simple pieces, not dressed up to sound pretty. She told him she remembered the lobby night like it was frozen in time, how he stayed when the police arrived, how he pointed to her instead of himself, how he spoke the truth in front of strangers. She told him he didn't treat her like damage. He treated her like a person. "You could have walked away," she said. "You didn't." And after that, she kept showing up in the right ways, not the loud ways. Cole's mouth opened like he had an answer ready, but nothing came out. Eliza took a breath, like stepping into cold water, and said it straight. "Marry me." They say Cole blinked once, then again, like the words didn't fit the room. For a moment, he didn't look like a leader at all. He looked like a man whose whole life had taught him to expect nothing good for free. Eliza's cheeks turned red, but she didn't back down. "I'm not asking because I need saving," she said. "I'm asking because I like who I am when you're near. I feel safe. I feel seen. And I want a home that doesn't feel like a hiding place." Cole's eyes went wet, and he let out a short laugh like he couldn't believe his luck. "In America," he said softly, "men like me don't get offered things like that." Eliza leaned closer. "Then say yes," she said, "and prove them wrong." They say he said yes so fast that the waitress at the next table turned to look, thinking she'd missed a joke. Cole reached across the booth and held Eliza's hand like it was something fragile and priceless. Eliza didn't cry right then. She just sat down finally and let herself breathe as her lungs belonged to her. Later, outside the diner, Cole asked if she was sure, and Eliza answered in the simplest way. "I'm sure," she said. "I spent too long letting other people decide what I deserve." Cole nodded and kissed her forehead, gently, like he was promising to keep his strength pointed in the right direction. They didn't throw a big wedding because neither of them wanted a show. They rented a small hall near Eliza's neighborhood for $300 and kept the guest list short. Denise Carver came with a bright scarf and a loud laugh, and she cried the moment she saw Eliza in a simple white dress that cost $210. Rachel Morrow showed up too, bringing flowers and telling Eliza she looked like freedom. Cole wore a clean shirt and stood straighter than anyone had ever seen him stand. He bought Eliza a ring for $380, paid in cash, not flashy, just honest. Someone joked it looked like something you'd see in Europe, but Eliza only smiled, because she didn't need fancy places to prove love was real. When they said their vows, the room stayed quiet in a good way, and Eliza's voice didn't shake. Afterward, they ate cake made by a friend for $70. And they left with leftovers and laughter, stepping into a life that finally felt like their own.